Alan Waters here, your marketing and communications coordinator with the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce with your Words of Wisdom podcast. Today's episode is going to be focusing all on ribbon cuttings and business after hours, the networking side of things here at the Chamber, and what that can do for your business. I am joined today by...
Hi, my name is Reese. I am a journalism and psych major at Virginia Tech, and I am also interning with the Chamber of Commerce this semester. Super excited, and I'm super excited to be here today.
Well, thank you for being here with us, Reese. So the reason I wanted to talk about the two things here, ribbon cuttings, business after hours, these are two of the things that are already included with membership here at the Chamber. Just by being a Chamber member, you have access to this. It does not cost you anything extra. And so we want you to take advantage of that to the best of your ability for your business. We've already talked about Membership 101. We've talked about case groups, but what do ribbon cuttings and business after hours do for your business on the other side of things? Networking is such an important part of marketing, and it doesn't seem like it's a marketing tool. It seems like it's something you should do anyway, but ultimately it is marketing. It is something that is putting your business out there. It's getting attention drawn to your business. And it also needs to be done in a targeted way. You can't just go network with whoever and expect it to end up in business. If I'm a car salesman, I'm not necessarily going to network out at a open house for a house that's for sale. That's not the same, that's not where I'm going to get my business from networking. But when you look at ribbon cuttings, when you look at business after hours, it presents two opportunities. The first opportunity is for ribbon cuttings. It may potentially be a brand new business. It's brand new people in the chamber sphere. Whether this is because they are a new business or because they're just joining the chamber or they've gone through a big renovation or change in management, whatever it may be, they're a new person to interface with. And that's the big part with ribbon cuttings. When you go to business after hours, it's very similar, but it's more about who are the established people in the chamber, who is coming out to this business after hours, and how many industries are available. It gives you a really good breadth of industry. And that's what you want with your networking when you're looking at it as an open source, not something that's targeted. But ribbon cuttings can be a really good source of targeted, networking, because you can look at all of our upcoming ribbon cuttings and say, oh, great, that's a business that would really work well with my business. That's someone who's going to be a good contact. That's someone who I could constantly pass referrals to, or who may be able to pass referrals to me. And so that's what you want to look at as you set up that targeted marketing plan. As you look at ribbon cuttings and business after hours and really other networking opportunities as well, there's a good and there's a bad to it. You can absolutely go to these and have the best intentions and come across as someone who's either not reliable, someone who's too pushy, and we'll focus in on some of that as we get to the back half of the episode, tips, tricks to actually network and showcase yourself to the best of your ability. But when we're looking at these opportunities, the number one part is, more than anything, you're building a community by going to these. I've said this for a lot of our topics so far, but if you go into a situation with what can I give rather than what can I receive, you're going to end up in a better situation. And that's what it needs to be as you go to some of these ribbon cuttings and business after hours. It needs to be, great, what can I go? What can I give to the people that are attending? What can I learn from the people that are attending? Not necessarily, okay, great, what business can I leave with today? Can I leave with 2 sales from this ribbon cutting? Because it happens. I'll give a story of one of our recent ribbon cuttings to just show what it can do for you. We had a ribbon cutting at the chamber office. I won't specify the companies involved, but after their ribbon cutting, a few days later, we received an email saying, hey, thank you so much for helping us set up this ribbon cutting. One of the other attendees just signed a $50,000 contract with us for the next year. And that's fully because they were at the right place at the right time. Ribbon cuttings are so great because it gives you an opportunity, one, as a business. If you've not hosted a ribbon cutting, highly, highly suggest you do. You get to tell everyone in attendance who you are, what you're about. It gives you the opportunity to teach everyone else, this is who I am, this is what I have to offer, but also who you are as a person. We've said it before, people do business with people, not brand names. So just by having that ribbon cutting, showing you're willing to give something to the community, highly, highly recommend food. People love free food. You get a situation where you've already brought people in, you've created a bit of trust between them, and you get to essentially do your elevator pitch to everyone in attendance. And it could have really good repercussions. $50,000 is a good amount of money. It's a lot more than I make in a day. So that's something where you want to actually sit down and look at that on your side. On the host side, what does a ribbon cutting do for you in the marketing sense? On the attendee side, it's the same thing. You're not going to that ribbon cutting with the intention of, great, I want to make a $50,000 sale, or great, I want to give someone $50,000. You're going on I want to learn more about this. I want to learn more about what they can do for our community. And I want to learn more about how I can get them out to our community. Again, helping one another, building that community of collaboration is going to get us so much farther than a competition-based model. Business after hours, a little bit different when you go to hosting and attending. To host a business after hours, you do, of course, have to be a member. Hosting a business after hours costs money, whereas hosting a ribbon cutting does not. But at a business after hours, you've got a longer time period. You've got a much more informal meeting, and you get the chance to see people as they are when they're not in the professional office environment. Again, you're doing business with people. You want to see who they are when they're not at their most reserved. What does someone look like after a drink or two? By the way, attendees, when you go to the business after hours as a chamber member, you do get 2 drink tickets. Please make sure you're drinking responsibly. That goes a long way in so many different ways. But also, it loosens you up a little bit. I'm not saying that alcohol is needed for any of this. By all means, come drink, come don't drink, whatever you want to do. But remember where you're at. If someone else is like, hey, here, take my drink tickets, and the next thing you know, you're 6 drinks in because you've taken people's drink tickets, that is remembered for a long time. So just be mindful, just like Captain Morgan, commercials, drink responsibly, but have a good time. Because business after hours is meant for having a good time. It's meant for getting in a room with other professionals, cutting loose a little bit, and being a little bit more social, so that you can just have that moment where you're all learning a little bit more about one another, about your families, about your personal life. What do you like to do in the weekends? Because ultimately, when you're networking, those opportunities lead to a lot more. If you go to business after hours and then you set up an appointment with someone because, you both realize you really like to play golf. Great. You're at a golf outing. You have a moment now where instead of just an hour and a half to bend someone's ear, you got a whole day. Because I've been there at our golf tournament. It takes a long time to get through those 18 holes, and you get to have fun while you're doing business, and a lot of times you're getting paid to do so. And there's no better way to spend a day than out on a golf course with a beer in hand, talking to people that you just enjoy being around. Those things all come from these networking opportunities. And the best part about networking, at least in my opinion, is that you get to just talk, but make sure you're talking and listening. No one wants to be sitting there as you tell them all about your life story, and in the meantime, they've tried 3 times to tell you about their cat at home. Meanwhile, you're on cat number 9 talking about what they did. You've got to be open. You've got to have both sides. I say as I completely domineer this talking, and Reese is stuck here listening to me. So Reese, you've not really been to any of the business after hours, but you've been to some of the ribbon cuttings. And I know I'm throwing you on the spot, but tell me your impressions as someone who's actually just been there. What have you seen from the ribbon cuttings?
So in my experience with ribbon cuttings, I definitely see that big sense of like community and networking. For example, when we went to this one ribbon cutting, it was a restaurant. I won't drop any names, but it was a restaurant that's nearby the area, and a lot of people enjoyed the food. Everybody loves free food. Everybody enjoyed the food. Everybody was talking, and this is like a cultural organization too. So I believe that exposure is something that a lot of people could learn from and continue to be open-minded. And with another organization that just had another ribbon cutting as well, well. A lot of people were exposed to a specific type of like medicine that they had some questions about. And of course, with that ribbon cutting, they asked questions, they were inquisitive. And this type of like what you said, Alan, I believe like having ribbon cuttings is important so that way people can pour more people in and say, oh, this is a really good idea for a business and I would love to do business with you. And this is such an interesting topic. I want more people to learn about it. I want my friends to know about it and their friends to know about it. So yeah, I think this like sense of community is like really nice. And I believe that having these ribbon cuttings are really, really awesome. I would love to one day go to a business after hours and compare the two, but maybe someday.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll be there, can, if we pay you. So, and I think you hit the nail on the head, and especially when you look at the cultural things, you look at some of the other information that someone may not know before they go to a ribbon cutting. It could be somewhere that you really think you do know, and you get there and realize there are different offerings, there are different things that you never would have imagined if you hadn't been brought together in this room.
Right.
Now, for someone who's never attended one of our ribbon cuttings, it is made up of both business owners, business professionals. A lot of what we have is our ambassador teams and similar members that come out that want to support from the chamber side. The other side of it is we work with you to create a graphic to go out on social media. We help you with marketing those aspects so that you have both your own efforts as well as the chamber efforts to get people there. Now, that works best when you're working hand in hand with us. If we make a post, share it, get that word out there so that the reach just goes longer. We do our best here at the chamber that we like to share things at least 2 weeks out so that we start building interest along and along as we go. So as you're doing the same thing, look at what your marketing strategy is to get people to that ribbon cutting. There are a lot of steps that go into the ribbon cutting beyond just cutting a ribbon, which is hard to think about sometimes. I don't know about y'all, but at least my mother and my dad, whenever I mention that we're doing ribbon cuttings, they're like, oh, wow, your whole job is just cutting ribbons. And it's not. The ribbon itself is one small part of it. It's actually that networking, that community building, that's the bigger part. Getting that attention out there. There are people that without a ribbon cutting, people may never know where your location is. They may never know what your location offers. And so that's one of the biggest parts of this is making sure you're putting as much information out into the public as you possibly can. All right, some of the other important parts that go hand in hand with business after hours, ribbon cuttings, really in-person networking is the immediate feedback. You're able to engage in real-time conversations. You're able to see what people think about your business at that moment. And this is where that vulnerability and that honesty comes up, because this isn't a situation where you've gone to see your niece in the Nutcracker for the 400th time and people are all like, oh, it's all amazing. They are amazing. Don't let me get it wrong. Go enjoy and see your niece in the Nutcracker. But there's a difference between just saying something's great and actually giving constructive feedback. If I'm in a performance, if you go to see me in the Nutcracker, please, by all means, stop me after and be like, wow, Alan, you can't dance. Because that's how you learn. And it's okay to realize and have those moments. It's okay to realize, oh, I thought as a business owner, my offering was giving this to the general public, but the general public doesn't see it like that. They actually see it this way. That's what gives you the information to keep growing your business. I've said this before, it's not failure unless you stop. So if you get in there and you're like, well, this is what I meant to do, and if you don't see it that way, that's your fault, that's your problem, you're missing a big step in this. So that immediate feedback is really helpful. So is the memorability. There's a recent ribbon cutting I remember, and I'll be honest, what I remember about it is not what they offer, it's the food they provided. But if you have something at your ribbon cutting, whether it's the food, whether it's your presentation, whether it's your office, something that people will take away, whenever they think of that moment, they're going to think about your business. And that is such a big part because in general, it takes 26 interactions before something becomes memorable, before you get to the point of, oh, this is the place I'd go to because I've had these interactions. thinking about that as you're planning your event is a big, big part of it. And that memorability aspect comes back to ultimately your professional branding. You want to make sure that your ribbon cutting or your business after hours, whatever you've done for that evening, you want to leave people thinking about your business. And so you want to make sure across the board that it is succinct. When they look at that first, graphic for your ribbon cutting, does it actually look like your business? Does it actually reflect what your business has to offer? When people get there for your business after hours and are looking around the room, are they thinking more about the food and drink, or are they thinking about what you have to offer? I'll reference our most recent business after hours at Ed and Ethel's. When people walked in, of course, they loved the drink and the food and the 50-50 raffle, but the biggest part was all of the jewelry that was showcased around the room. The way it was set up, people were constantly interacting with one another amidst the jewelry. So with any look to the left, right, up, down, center, you saw something that was also eye-catching, and ultimately something that was a little shiny, a little sparkly that you might want to take home. It helps when you've got your significant other in the room looking at that jewelry as well, going, oh, I'd love that. But that's more jewelry specific. I know for a fact Marissa left going, oh my God, the most expensive thing there. I loved it. And I'm so sorry to Marissa's spouse, because now Marissa's going to keep mentioning that the rest of the year. But that's the big part about making sure that your branding is present. And it links back, like I said, to that memorability. You want to make sure your branding is on point so that people not only remember the food, they remember the food was at the business after hours for this business in specific. You don't want to go home from your business after hours saying, my God, I can't wait to go to the restaurant that food was from. Please do that anyway. You want to leave that business after hours going, my God, that food was great and the store was decorated so well and everything was easy to access. I can't wait to send people over there. Those things are so important and get overlooked a lot because we think it's just about talking. It's just a ribbon cutting. It's just a business after hours. But it's not. It's a marketing opportunity for your business that works on so many different fronts. In the back half of this episode, we're going to be talking about your tips and tricks to make sure that when you're in person, when you're doing these networking opportunities, you are putting your best foot forward as a networker. What are the goods? What are the bads? What are the things you need to do? What are the things you need to avoid doing? We'll get to that in just a moment. Chamber members, do you want to be featured on this podcast? Well, this is your opportunity. As sponsors for our podcast, you are featured in that first 15 minutes where we're going to talk about you, your business, what success means to you, what you think success means to the world, and in your industry, how can you be successful? All of these things we'll be talking about with you as your sponsorship, and then we will have an ad just like this placed specifically for you. We can record it. It can be a live read by myself, or if you already have something for your business that you want played, we can put it here. The rule is it's got to be 60 seconds or under, and we're ready to go. So members, if you want to be a part of that, this could be you, and we look forward to talking more about it. Make sure to reach out for more information at marketing@montgomerycc.org. That's marketing@montgomerycc.org. Back to the episode. All right, welcome back to Words of Wisdom podcast, focusing all on in-person networking through our events, ribbon cuttings, and business after hours, but also in general. How to make the most out of your in-person networking. In-person networking can be hard. I'll be honest, I'm an introvert. I'm here talking all the time. You see me everywhere, and it's my job to be everywhere and do all those things. But when I get done, oh man, can I tell you how much I will go home, lay on the couch, and binge watch an entire series just so I can get away from it. That's the hard part, because I would do that all day, every day if I could. But you have to get out there. You have to talk to the people. You have to do those things. You have to kind of force that extrovert out of you a little bit. For those of you who are extrovert listeners, good on you. I'm glad you can do that a lot. But even then, you have your own social battery and you can only do so much. Here are some tips and tricks that you can go through, and we've got quite a few of them, but that will make sure that you are putting your best foot forward. 1, start with a strong handshake. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, My dad used to stop me and he would make me shake his hand and he would tell me like, no, it's not hard enough. It's not, make sure that you're doing this the right way. And I, as a kid, was like, this makes no sense. Why do I need to do it? But it oddly, it comes across more than people think. If you go into a conversation and you've got what people will call a wet fish of a handshake, it's just loose, there's nothing to it. People, whether realizing it or not, do judge you based off of those situations. They judge you based off of your confidence. And so having that strong handshake gives that confidence. Your aim is to exude confidence, not intimidation, though. So you also don't want it to be too strong. If I went and shook The Rock's hand, I'd imagine my hand would be broken afterwards, but I'd still be terrified of it. You don't want to go in, you don't want to break the hands, but you also don't want to be too soft in your handshake. Dress the part. I know this gets said so much, you dress for the job you want, not the job you have. But ultimately, when you're going to these networking events, you want to still be presentable. It's okay to feel more casual and be more business casual, but you don't want to walk up and be in, gym clothes when everyone else in the room has got a tie and a jacket on. So you need to know what you're going to and what kind of networking event it is, and you need to dress appropriately for that. Be genuine. I cannot tell you how many times I've been networking with someone, and I can tell when I'm doing it, where I show up and my whole approach is just a matter of, I want to tell people about me. And when you have that approach, people can tell. They can tell if you're just there to talk about yourself and not to listen. So be genuine. Actually go with the interest of, I want to learn from one another, and be who you are. Don't try to pretend to be someone else. Listen actively. Again, you got to be able to listen and know the steps of how to listen actively. Ask questions about some of the things they've brought up. Make sure that whether it's, you're doing a slight head nod or you've got your hmms or ah and yes, things that make the person talking know you're actually in the conversation. Now, as someone with ADHD, I understand this can be hard because there are oftentimes I'll be listening to someone and it's an active listening. And the next thing I know, I go, did I say that too loud? Or was my yes way too enthusiastic? It's okay. Just focus back in on that conversation before you get too out there. Your elevator pitch down. We've talked about this on our case podcast. We've talked about this on Membership 101. Having that elevator pitch is very important. Make sure you've got your 60 seconds really together so that you tell people who you are, where do you work, what do you do, and what you can offer. Because they do want to hear that information. But ditch the sales pitch. In that 60 seconds, don't have it be all about sales. Have it be more about that education. What can you offer people? What are you looking for? Who you are. People do business with people, so make sure they know who you are in that 60 seconds above all else. The sales pitch can happen. It will happen at certain points, but it can't be that you meet 30 people in one room and by the end of it, you've repeated the same exact sales pitch to every single person. People see through that. People see that you're not being genuine and it hurts. Be curious. Ask a lot of questions. Just as you're wanting the people to know more about you, they want you to know more about them. It's a two-way street, so make sure you're keeping that going. Make sure you're following up as well. Networking in person is great, but I don't know about you, but for me, once I talk to you, I don't have your name, number, and face memorized. More often than not, as many people as I've met in the past few months, I'll be somewhere completely random, and someone comes up and be like, hey, and I have to be like, hey, you, how are you? Someone's like, oh, you don't remember me? And of course I don't, because we never followed up with one another. If you don't have that follow-up, you can't expect either side, and that's another two-way street. Just because I talk to you doesn't mean that it always has to be me following up. You just need to have that follow-up there, and if we both come to it with that understanding, more likely going to happen. Stay organized, stay updated. You don't want to go into a conversation with, a piece of information, especially with another industry. You're talking about this and they're like, oh, actually, that's not true anymore. It's not that, the rates aren't, gosh, I really wish I could say the rates aren't 3% anymore. They're 2. More like now it's the rates aren't 20%. They're 15. You just got to make sure you're knowing what's going on in the world. It's not that, hey, we want you to be the news person, but if you're still talking about that Will Smith slap at the Oscars, you're a little outdated on the information and it shows. Practice good etiquette. If The food being served at a business after hours is garlic heavy. Maybe don't get real up and close with someone when you're talking. We understand we've all got garlic on our breath, but remember those things. Be mindful of their personal space. Don't interrupt people. Make sure you're not dominating the conversation like I am right now. You've got to let people be people, and you want to be hygienic about it, and you want to be courteous with it. I said this earlier, limit your alcohol intake. At most of these events, like I said, you get 2 drink tickets, and that's kind of your cutoff, unless there's a cash bar. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy the good drink here and there, but you're still in a professional atmosphere. This isn't the clubs when you were in college. It's not that same feeling. You don't want to come across as the person that people can talk about as being a little sloppy. That's never a good look. So make sure you understand your limitations and you stay within that realm. From there, join or create networking groups. If you're going to our ribbon cuttings and you're going to business after hours and you're not in a case group, is that something you should be doing? Is that another networking group good for you, a young professionals group or a business owners group? Or I'm just naming things that I know are on Facebook right now. Look at those opportunities so that you can continue to spread your networking outreach. And I said this before so many times, but number 15, the most important one of this list, remember that it's a two-way street. Networking isn't just about what you get out of a relationship, but it's also about what you can offer. You need to be willing to help others. You need to share your resources. You need to offer guidance when appropriate, because ultimately, this is all meant for the betterment of ourselves, the betterment for one another, and the betterment of our community. If you don't come into that opportunity, that networking place, with that mindset, we're all going to suffer. So those are your tips, tricks, and everything to networking. I hope this has been an informative episode. I know this one is a little more informal than some of our others because networking itself, in-person networking, is informal to a degree. It is meant about talking and just learning, so don't be afraid to embrace that. I've said this a lot in my past works. Embrace limitations. Don't do things in the face of limitations. In-person networking, I don't think is a limitation, but you still need to embrace the opportunities that you're doing, and you need to embrace the different way that you're marketing compared to a Zoom class or something like that. It's different, and you just have to keep that approach going, that you're ever evolving, you're ever changing. Make sure that you go into these situations with the understanding, I'm not going to behave the exact same now that I will when I'm in my referral group, when I am recording this podcast with Alan. It's a different way of networking. It's a different way of marketing. Make sure you're doing the best you can. All right, members, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you being here, and we will see you again in the next 2 weeks with our next episode of the Words of Wisdom podcast. Thank you all for listening, and remember, connect, engage, prosper.